Welcome to the Planeswalker Project.
Hello Commander players, I hope you're all doing well today. So as you all know by now, Commander 2017 is but a month away. We're gearing up for the battle of the four armies. The army of the dragon, the army of the cat, the army of presumably vampires, and of course the army of the clerics. I have no idea what this tribe is supposed to be. My bet is either on clerics or wizards. But with every Commander product, there are plenty of cards that are reprinted for the utility that they have in these new decks. With Commander 2016, we saw such cards as Burgeoning, Chromatic Lantern, and Scavenging Ooze see reprints. The Commander precons are a great place to put reprints of cards that could use a few more printings to make them a little more accessible to players wanting them. But seeing as we're going for Tribal this year, it's going to be a little harder to predict what kind of cards we're going to see reprints of. Will Brimaz see a reprint? We already saw quite a lot of supposed spoilers in the leaks that came out earlier this year, so I'm not going to really touch any of those aside from the Commanders that have already pretty much been confirmed. So what other cards do I have hopes for seeing in this year's precons? In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the cards that I would like to see reprinted in this year's set. Just remember to tap that like button if you want to see more videos like this one. So to preface this list, I want to say that every year we have one or two decks that are considered the runaway decks. 2016 had the Invent Superiority deck featuring Brea, the Breed Lethality deck featuring Atraxa, the year before that had Plunder the Graves featuring Marin, and so on. And with every set of precons, there has always been at least one deck that becomes super popular, so much more so than the rest, that it becomes super hard to find. This year, I feel it's going to be the Dragon deck. There are so many powerful dragons that could be featured in this deck, and given the sheer popularity of dragons in Commander, I could say that this one is going to be the one to snag up when you can. That being said, my first reprint prediction is Udvara Hellkite. It was only printed in Return to Ravnica, and it's a super powerful card to drop in a deck that wants a lot of dragons to attack. It spawns more dragons that can spawn even more dragons, and things can quickly get out of hand. There are a ton of dragons that could easily make this list, but I feel like this one is my top pick, only out of my personal preference, and it does actually have a lot of synergy with the new Dragon Commander. My second card I hope for is Conditional. The two remaining tribes have yet to be officially confirmed, but it's assumed due to the way the artwork looks that one of them will be either a red-black vampire tribal deck or maybe even a three-color Mardu vampire deck featuring Edgar Markov. If we do get vampires, which I really hope for, I would really like to see them reprint Captivating Vampire. This might not seem like such a super great choice given how many other ridiculously powerful vampires we can use, but one thing that is super potent in Commander, and possibly even better in some instances to removal, is flat out stealing someone else's creatures. The Captivating Vampire, it doesn't kill creatures, but instead it turns them into vampires and then brings them under our control. Best of all, control of that new vampire doesn't return to the original owner should the Captivator either die or leave the battlefield, making this a super potent removal card, I guess you can consider it. Now, I know I mentioned it in a previous video, but the next card I would really love to see is Brimaz, King of Ereskos. I definitely recommend this cat in a cat tribal deck solely for the value it gives in spawning creature tokens. Brimaz is pretty much the go-to cat commander at the moment, unless you want to go more Voltron and use Kemba, but if you want to spawn lots of cats and go wide with tokens, Brimaz is significantly better. Since he was only ever printed in Born of the Gods, this is the perfect place to stick him in for a reprint. I mean, he's a cat commander, stick him in the cat deck. Now then, this next one is a card I feel could easily be printed in all four decks. Adaptive Automaton. This is like the perfect lord creature for a lot of decks. In a lot of tribes such as elves, goblins, merfolk, slivers, we get a lot of creatures that give buffs to other creatures of that type. A lot of tribes don't have such a creature. Adaptive Automaton is pretty much the only option you might have, and while certain tribes like dragons, who really don't need so much of an Anthem ability due to their already ridiculous power, might be a really great inclusion for some of these other decks. I mean, heck, cats only recently got officially a lore creature in Regal Caracal, so maybe we can use some more Anthem effects, This next card is one that is such a potent card, I feel a lot of players have no idea about, but if they did, watch out. Mana Echoes. This card is broken in a lot of strategies, so much more now that mana burn is no longer a thing. Whenever a creature comes into play, you get to add a colorless mana to your mana pool for each creature you control that shares a type with it. So, since this includes your opponent, should they drop something that shares even a single creature type with one of your creatures, you get mana. This card could so very easily be included in the Dragon deck, a deck that I feel desperately needs ramp in order to keep up with some of these lower curve tribes. The next cards are ones that I feel have so much value in the commander decks, since 2 of them already been confirmed to have green mana in them: Exploration and Burgeoning. A lot can be argued which of the 2 is better, but I feel in multiplayer Commander, it's crucial to be able to get consistently more mana out faster. The 2 of these together can give you a ton of ramp that cards like Cultivate really can't keep up with. We got Burgeoning already in last year's set, and I feel both of these cards can be put into this year's set as well. They're both 1-drop green spells, so it's not like they're super hard on the curve, and they give you a lot of value. Now, a lot of people have said, since we have a 5-color dragon deck, that they might reprint the Shocklands or whatever in these decks, especially, you know, given the sheer amount of multicolor we're getting. I feel that's going to be a no, given that the MSRP of these decks is about $35, $36, and, you know, the total value that you're getting out of them might only vary from that, like $10 to $20 at the launch. Some of them are obviously going to jump up to like $70 or whatever, but instead, I feel Wizards' team is going to be designing these mana bases in such a way that they can get out the mana while still keeping a pretty budget. Having said that though, I do feel like some of these decks need to pull out some stoppers and print some very useful budget multicolor lands, like City of Brass, Mana Confluence, and so on, so that maybe we don't get the Shocklands or the super fetch lands. But last year, they really went really nice on the mana bases for these decks. And in the same vein as some of the Signet lands and maybe the Pain lands, they have to look for some great utility in a budget mana base that I know Wizards can do. And that's going to do it for this video. What kind of cards do you want to see reprinted in this set? I want to hear you guys in the comments below. Let's see when spoiler season hits, who's right, and what we are going to get to work with. Stay tuned as we get closer to the Commander 2017 release date as we look at the spoilers and the deck lists and see what we can work with. Remember to like and share this video with your friends at Commander Playgroup, and if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a patron over at our Patreon today. And with that, I will see you at the beginning of the next upkeep.